Cost breakdown. What does it cost to go racing? So our last race was the Big Sky 12 hour and the Big Sky 200, kind of all in one. We tried to run for 12 hours, didn't work out so well, as you may have seen. We ended up making it about 7-ish hours, 7.5 hours, something like that. So to assess cost, I'm gonna break this down into 3 categories. So the first category, what it costs to actually get to the race with a properly prepped car, all that. So the race is about, I think it's like 8-9 hours from here, fairly standard for off-road racing. You're gonna be driving long distances. The fuel for the motorhome, that was about $600, so not horrible. Entry fee, it was $550 and $550, I want to say, for each of the races. So $1,100 total for the Big Sky 12 hour and the 200 together. This is pretty standard. Some local races are as cheap as like $500-600, as much as like $3,500 for the big races, for even a UTV class. So it's expensive. And then the other, just to get there, cost, fuel for the race car, that was like $300. So just to get to the race, just to have enough stuff, for bare minimum $2,000 to get there. That's not including consumables after the race or prep to get ready for the race, which is the second category. And then the third category, damage from the race. So to properly get an assessment of not just everything that's damaged, but everything that we wore out, all the consumables, which is the second category, I need to pull the skid plate and give this thing a proper wash. All right, so I was able to get a pretty good idea of what this thing needs, but the next category, this is the consumable stuff, the stuff that regular maintenance kind of covers. Obviously, it's a little more extensive when you're racing. First off, fluids, belt, air filter stuff I change every single race. That's about $500. Engine oil change, front diff, transmission fluid, oil filter, air filter, that sort of thing. 2 rear tires next. I kind of alternate. Usually I'll like throw brand new rears on. Next race I'll swap those to the front and throw brand news on the rear, because obviously even in 4-wheel drive you're going through rears way quicker than the fronts. Unfortunately I don't get a deal with BFG. That is about $600 for these. And then 4 sets of brake pads. Obviously all 4 corners. That's about $200. I think I forget which model we run, but they're EBC. Fortunately, I get a little bit of help with that, but about $200 retail. Another wear part, Heim joints. This is very, very common on race cars. I need to replace all 12 on the rear radius rods, possibly on the tie rods as well, but I'm not sure. The steering feels tight. Everything up front feels pretty tight still, so I think we're okay, but I'm gonna check those out. Anyway, 12 Heim joints for the radius rods in the rear. That is about $400 from Shock Therapy. I'm gonna probably look at doing like FK or something like that. From what I've had good luck with the Shock Therapy ones. They're Shock Therapy radius rods. So again, about $400 for that. Next is 2 rear axles. Kind of a wear part again. I should probably replace all 4. I think the fronts are okay. The fronts are relatively new. Again, you go through the rears quicker. I have the Blaze Racing heat sinks on there, so that helps, but I'm gonna replace them just to be safe and then keep those as spares. And that's about $500 for those 2 rear axles. Another wear part, probably should be doing this every race or every other race. It's been, I think I have 4 or 5 races on this right now. Revalving and servicing the suspension. Probably need new springs because we've added a lot of weight since setting up the car. The car works pretty well. It's a little soft. Anyway, give or take, that's about $1,000. I have to guess. I don't know exactly. Vital Motion Co. does my stuff. Fortunately, he helps me a little bit on the price, but obviously still got to pay a decent chunk of money for that. And I think a service is relatively cheap, but we'll see, especially if we gotta change springs. So again, it's about $1,000. And another thing for routine service stuff, clutches. I need to send these clutches to KWI, get that tuned. Little bit of an upgrade, should have been done a long time ago, but also they've never been serviced. So far I've had good luck with the with belts, but need to get those serviced. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe have them do the float mod. I don't think I'm gonna have them recut, but maybe have them resurfaced or something like that. So anyway, that's like $1,000, I think. So to summarize the consumables and regular prep section, $500 for fluids, belt, air filter, etc. $600 for the rear tires, $200 for the brake pads, $400 for the heim joints, $500 for the rear axles, and about $1,000 for the suspension, and then another $1,000 for the clutch service. And now the damage portion, the fun stuff. Replacing what's there and not really upgrading stuff. So first off, front diff, driveline, transmission. Front driveline, toasted. It, I think what happened was the carrier bearing let go, and then it took out the pinion bearing in the front diff, gone. So that sucks. And then the transmission. It needs a transmission service anyway. I think the transmission's okay. I'm gonna drain the fluid next and see. So right now, I'm not exactly sure, but for everything, this was a quote from Sandcraft at full retail pricing. The full drive line from transmission up to the front diff service where I ship my diff off, and transmission service, which needs to be done anyway. $3,500 retail, so that's a tough pill to swallow. I think they do some beefing up internally. I was looking on their website. Hopefully that'll help. And I know for a fact that doing the driveline will prevent the pinion failure in the future, because this is the third front diff I've gone through from a pinion bearing failure. And according to their website, at least everything I've been able to research, basically the stock driveline kind of does like a bend, or there's kind of like a bend in it, where the carrier bearing is a little bit offset from center. The Sandcraft one, from my understanding, corrects that, and I've been told this by several racers, so hopefully this helps. It'll hopefully prevent that failure in the future. So either way, I'm gonna upgrade that. I think it's like $1,100 or something like that, but it needs to be done, and it's gonna be beefier anyway. There's a lot of, I don't know what kind of load that would be, but differing loads from the front axle to the rear axle, where like you come down hard on a braking bump and you're under braking or under throttle, and it'll like jolt the front wheel while the rear wheel is spinning, or vice versa, and that just puts a lot of load on the transmission and on the driveline. So gonna upgrade that. Hopefully that'll fix that failure point in the future. The next, I need to do lower radius rods. They're bent from hitting rocks. I might be able to straighten them out. I'm gonna try, so stay tuned in a future video. That'll probably be the next video, where I'm tearing this thing apart and doing whatever I can to prep it for the transmission service and everything, where I have to tear the whole rear end of the car apart. So gonna put those in the press, because they are fortunately just chromoly steel rods, so hopefully I can straighten those out. The next thing, not really applicable to anyone but myself, hand controls. My hand control setup I have in here, it's been taken in and out a million times from every time we do long races and I do a driver change with our other driver. Obviously he's not a para, so we take the hand controls out. I've lost a bunch of parts, they're old, they've failed a couple times, and I can tell some of the moving parts are getting weak. So I'm gonna replace the whole hand control kit. I think that's like almost $1,000, so that sucks. And then I'm gonna do all that work myself of installing it. The siren button cable. So it's like a spiraled cable that goes from the steering wheel, so I can push that. Connects down just from regular use. I think it got caught on the hand controls or something. It frayed and ended up tearing. So the last race, the second half of it, I didn't even have a siren that worked. So need to replace that. That's like $100. Not a big deal, but stuff like that just adds up. Another thing I need to do, get this thing tuned. Kind of counts as an upgrade, maybe not necessarily. It should be in this video, but I'm just including it for the heck of it. That's another like $600, I want to say. I send the ECU off. Unfortunately, this is a 22 and up model, so it has an encrypted ECU. They need to hack into that. Evo and Wayland, I think, are the only two companies that are able to do that. Anyway, yeah, I need to get the speed limiter removed, give it a little more horse torques, and yeah, get a couple of the protections out of this thing because it goes into limp mode way too easy. So, gonna get that done. Fortunately, some of the rear bearings, I redid the hubs before the last race, which included the rear wheel bearings, which is nice. The fronts, I think, are okay still. I'm gonna check them out, inspect the bearings, do some crack detection stuff on the front knuckles and all that stuff. Fortunately, I think the front end is still solid. The steering rack is good, which is a big failure point on these so far. So here's the grand total for the damages / upgrade section. Not the most fun thing in the world. Yeah, lots of money I gotta come up with before the next race, unfortunately. And for a grand total, here's the number. I don't know math off the top of my head. Yeah, good times. I'll be honest, it's gonna be tough to get this thing ready for the next race. I'm entirely self-funded, and yeah, some of the perks of this grassroots racing thing, trying to compete with the big guys who have big sponsors, work with companies, get cash money sponsorships. But yeah, I know, kind of a little bit of a weird video, but I want to do something a little different than the typical racers do, where they just post Insta bangers and race edits and then talk about how fun the race was and then just cut to the next one and have their crew prep the car. I think we're doing something cool here, being that I'm entirely self-funded, and I'm trying to tell the story of doing this from a grassroots perspective of bridging the gap between just a play car, dune goon, trail goober, and racing the big boys. And I think there's a lot more to it than people usually post, so I'm trying to do something different here, trying to tell the whole story. The story of what goes on between the races and the stress and the work that goes behind it, and yeah, trying to make it fun as well, because there's a lot of times when I'm out here by myself at 2 a.m. covered in grease and blood, sweat, and tears, and it's a lot of work. So thanks for coming along this journey. Stay tuned for more. There's going to be some cool stuff coming. So peace out, guys. See you on the next one when we tear this thing apart.